Hari Om. Hari Om. Hari Om. Hello, my friends. Recently, I have to mute. Sorry. Go ahead. Okay. Recently, the last clip that Mary prepared and I published on YouTube was about self-limiting beliefs. And then she said, when she was preparing that, she was examining herself closer, simply becoming aware how much she is being directed by beliefs, by self-limiting beliefs. Yes, but Mary, that's not only your situation, but that's the situation of everybody. Naturally, we are free. Naturally, we are not a person that feels separate but is connected with everything. Naturally, there are not all these painful limitations. Unfortunately, we grew up in a world where we learn to be not natural. Too bad. But there is always the possibility to break that circle. Most of the people grow up and put their tendencies, their habits, their patterns, their schablons, they put them in place very early in the life. And after that, the whole life is, in a way, just a repetition of the same mechanisms over and over and over. Thinking that one is freely choosing moment to moment, but actually being just directed by the old habits that are in place without being aware of it. What is needed is to look at oneself. What is needed is to bring the attention back home to the present. And then one becomes aware. We don't have to go and look for them. Just be here, be now, be quiet. And then all those things that are disturbing, that they are coming all by themselves. And if we do that, we become aware how much of our actions have been directed all the time. How much of our reactions are just the old patterns pushing us. As long as we are not aware of it, then we have the tendency to just reinforce them by repeating them over and over and over. What is needed that we are waking up from our being alive half asleep, that we become aware of being alive, that we become aware here now how magnificent it is to be alive, just to be, just to breathe, just to express oneself through a physical body on this level, on this material level. We are not simply the body. There is that teaching, I'm not the body, I'm not the mind. We are not really not the body. The body is an expression, the mind is an expression, but we are much more than that. Prior to that, there is that divine being. Prior to that, There is the divine beingness. Unfortunately, growing up, we completely forget about it. And invariably, we are being directed by everybody around us. How to think, how to feel, what to do, what we should do in the world, how to be a good citizen. And then, without being aware of it, one picks up all that and just puts it in place, gives it their own personal flavor, but there it is, all these limiting beliefs. But then Mary said something interesting. She said, but actually, if I'm alert, then I see thoughts coming, and there I become aware I have the freedom not to go along with it. When I'm alert, when I see the thoughts coming in a situation, I have the freedom to step back and decide not to go down that alley. Yes, that freedom is there all the time. But we have, because we have learned so much not to be aware of that, we have to learn to become aware of that. We have to unlearn what we have learned. We have to become aware that we are not victims of the circumstances. We are not victims of our own psyche. We are not victims of our past. Every moment there is the possibility to become aware what's going on and step a step back. Sometimes even when we are aware, the push, the pull, the habit is too powerful. We are, in spite of that, swept away. But this situation is very different than when we mindlessly, unconsciously just repeating it. If we basically see there is a mechanism that pushes me in a direction and I don't want to go because I know if I'm going down that alley, it creates again tensions, it creates again pain, unhappiness comes out of it, suffering comes out of it. But then still, out of habit, we find ourselves doing it again. It's not a pleasant experience, but actually it's very useful. If we see what's going on, there comes that sense of revulsion, and there comes that decision, even more profound. I want to be free of that. But many times, if that awareness is there, we see a tendency coming, we see thoughts coming, we see a reaction in a certain situation come up, and we just observe and decide, no, I need not repeat that same story again. In this way, if we live in this way, then we are, if we live in this way, then we are free. Sorry for the disturbance. I thought that cannot happen. I turned off the sound, but there still it happened. There is always that freedom there. And even if we don't succeed, at least we attempt it, and the whole situation changes. The very conscious attempt not to be pulled by old habits, by patterns, not to be a victim, is changing something. And even if it gets us, then we can just accept, okay, the pattern was too strong. It got me again. No need of being feeling very bad about oneself. All right, that's the situation. The pattern was too strong, but I'm not the helpless victim. Here, now, I can strengthen that intent that I'm not simply mindlessly being carried along, pushed along. That I can learn to detach from it, free myself from all those tendencies that create troubles. We don't have to get rid of all the tendencies that we have accumulated. Many tendencies, they don't create pain, they don't create tension, they don't increase that feeling of separation. So we can very well let them in place. But those tendencies that make the consciousness smaller, that make the conscious experience smaller, that create more that sense of separation that we have to learn to let go. They are limiting us. They are creating suffering. They are creating disharmony. And our true nature is joyousness. Our true nature is to be what we are, being aware that we are a divine being and not a limited personality separate from the whole rest of existence. That personality has its place on this level. It's a role that we are playing in this theater. Let us play this role. Sometimes it's happy, sometimes it's unhappy. But we are not that role. Like an actor on stage is not the role. We may play that role with zest, we may play that role with a lot of enthusiasm, and at the same time be aware this is momentary. It's a momentary role that I'm playing, but I'm prior to that. I am what I am. I am what I was before this role appeared. I am what I am during that game, that play that we are playing. And I am, and I will be, even when that role is over. I am what I am, here now, timelessly. So, Mary, yes, you have that freedom. Great that you could see that you can see that sometimes. In a situation, the thoughts are coming, want to push you in a direction which you usually have gone, and then you can decide, no, I simply don't do it. I simply don't go down that alley. And it's not that we should try to practice this only when we are in terrible situations. There we forget it. The life situations have the tendency to completely overwhelm our consciousness, overwhelm our attention, and just pull us along, and we completely forget about it. But every time we become aware, oh, how much I have been immersed in that. Don't regret the time that has passed. Okay, that is past. But right now, I come back home. I can connect. I can be in that state, in that space where I'm not affected by what is happening, where I can see what has been put in place, how the mechanisms happen, how they are pushing and pulling, and just decide what am I allowing to manifest and what I'm not allowing to manifest. Sometimes we may not be so successful, so what? Then that intent becomes stronger to be free, to be oneself, to be at home with oneself. And gradually, even very strong tendencies that kept on creating troubles again and again, we are capable to become stronger and then to let them go. And they are just a memory. They won't have the power anymore to direct our life, to direct our behavior, to direct our reactions to situations, which makes it much easier again to be at peace in oneself, to connect with the joyousness of the existence instead of being always in that murk, plodding along in that murk. So by all means, Mary, remind yourself, go on like this, becoming aware, what you have experienced, what you sometimes experience, you have the freedom to choose whether you are just going along with the old pattern or whether you're taking the freedom to be new and fresh and spontaneous from moment to moment. Okay, I leave the subject. Hario, Hario. Is there anybody who would like to come in and say something? Rita? Yes, hello, Rita.
Hello, Werner. I have not been listening to you for a long time now.
You're welcome back.
I remember that you've been sitting in a cave for a long time, and I just realized when I sit, sometimes there's, or it's very common that there's so much tension, and it's really challenging, and I have the impression it's not. First, I thought it's the sitting, but I don't really think it's the sitting. It's rather a mixture of old energies showing up, of actual thinking, of habits, how I work. I'll usually work very fast and not so friendly with my body. And 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 so I got the impression that movement or massage or all this stuff, it doesn't help so much like it used to help. And I have the impression the only way is just to sit and let it come. But sometimes I think, not I think I yeah yeah sometimes I wish there would be a shortcut, but I hope, but I or that I there's something which could make it easier. Um, but my impression is that in this case, I just have to be patient and deal with it again and again and again. And I mean, and there are in between, there are times when the body feels easier than it was. I have this experience also. Um, and I just wonder how you made it when you were sitting all this time in a cave. Um, did you need exercise, or how did you deal? Did you have similar experiences, or how how was the relation between confronting the difficult um, feel not feelings sensations? It's more sensations than but it's also feeling, yeah, but it feels more like sensations.
Yeah.
And how did you deal
Mm.
with that?
Mm. Well, first of all, Your story is your story. Werner's story is Werner's story.
Yeah.
It's not what I did, is what you have to do.
Yeah, yeah, right.
I can say that I had somehow the grace that the body didn't create so much obstacles.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing yoga since I was 14, and then I started to regularly sit a little, and then when I was first in that ashram in Bombay, regularly sit a little more. And then when I came to Amma, I started to sit as much as I could. And of course, first there were pains, but somehow gradually increasing, and then the body was not creating too much trouble. No, the problem was mainly the mind that comes and but of course it can also manifest, that mental activity can manifest in physical tension. It does, but somehow my grace was that somehow I have learned to relax better and better, at least on the physical level, already even before I did that.
Mm-hmm.
Before I did that sitting. And that has helped after that a lot. And I'm sure I got a lot of support from my teacher that was happy that I'm doing that. And then also there was that energetic support. Now, it is not so that you have to overcome all that by sitting all the time. That's one way to approach it. And if you feel like sitting and sitting maybe more, then by all means do so, but don't torture yourself. You can also sit, and then when you feel it's too much, instead of forcing you to stay with it longer, you can hold out for some time, but then instead of forcing yourself to stay longer, then rather stretch out, lie down, or get up, walk a little, and then you try again. And somehow include in your meditation that you just keep on relaxing, that you give that impulse, relax, relax,
Mm-hmm.
relax, relax. You consciously relax your legs, your knees, and already the whole rest of the body starts to relax a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's true, when from the subconscious our old stuff comes up, which is usually full of tensions, and the body remembers those tensions that are connected with those mental issues, then the tendency is to get all tense about it again. And there, it's very helpful that you not try too much on the mental level to control that or to figure out a solution, but redirect the attention to the body and relax. Breathe and relax. As good as you can. Breathe and relax. And then when the mental stuff still comes, you can look at it, and if through breathing and relaxing and being in the present, it's possible to let it go, by all means, let it go. If it's too insistent, then you may have to accept, okay, I have to go in certain stories. Let them come. Let the memories come. Let the emotions come. Let the sensations come. And observe instead of trying to control. And all the time, remind yourself and relax. And relax. And relax. And relax again. And then old stories come, but then you don't reinforce them, even if you let them come and think about it and let the emotions come and feel them again and let the sensations come and perceive them again. But at the same time, you observe and you relax. And then those tensions that somehow are locked in the subconscious, that also have the tendency, people say that stuff is locked in their body, but actually it's more locked in the subtle body, in the psyche. But then as soon as it comes up, the body starts to react. But on the physical level, we can immediately then, instead of getting more and more tense, remind ourselves, okay, let the sensations come, let the emotions come, let the thoughts come, but relax. And then a lot of the old tension starts to dissipate. Then after some time, the story or whatever we are busy may go, and we may think, that one is finished. And you are at peace, and for the rest of the day, and the next day when you sit down, the same story may come back. And then don't think, oh my God, if you can, let it go. But don't feel it's useless. I worked on it, and still coming back. Okay, it's still too strong. There is still too much tension locked into it, too much charge, emotional charge locked into it. Then you may have to surrender again. Okay, I let it come. Let that silly situation come. Let whatever it is come with all the emotions that are connected with it. Observe it and relax. Redirect the attention to your experience right now instead of getting lost in the memory. Redirect the attention to what it is doing to your experience right now and relax. Learn to relax. And gradually, the old tensions are getting less. And certain stories that have been heavy and heavy and came again and again, if we treat them like this, gradually they become weaker, and finally it's just a memory that cannot bother us any longer. And in course of the process, the body also learns to be more relaxed. But then bodies are different, and don't torture yourself. You can hold out, not immediately jump up when it's not more so pleasant, but at the same time, find out for yourself, feel for yourself how much is healthy, that you stick it out a bit, and then you say, okay, it's better to stretch out, it's better to walk a bit, it's better to maybe do some exercises. You asked whether I did exercises. Yes, I did exercises. For a long time, very little, but every day I did some yoga. But I came from an approach that I rather try to not have anything to do with the body. So it was minimal. Later, this changed, and I learned that it's much more helpful for me if I integrate the body. That instead of thinking, oh, this vehicle, I want to get out of it, but become aware that actually this is a fantastic vehicle. It's a fantastic expression of the self, and we can integrate it. And then I put more attention to the sensations, integrated to the breath, becoming aware through the breath of the prana behind, of the life energy, how it flows, becoming more and more aware that everything, every thought, every emotion, every sensation is based on that energy. Everything that we think, that we feel, is sending a wave of energy throughout the whole body and radiating it outside into the world. And if you become, then if you don't fight against the body, more integrated, then it has also the tendency to play along a bit easier and learn to relax. And the more you learn to relax, the less these sensations bother you, even if they come. Then you can see them, yes, it's not exactly an unpleasant situation, but if we don't resist, let it be there, observe, then it comes, it's there, it goes.
Thank you for remembering. I like the idea of the middle way, not to go in the extremes. And
Yes.
and what I have from listening to you, I really have this mantra. I remember that again, which when I feel tension, it comes. Connect, breathe, relax. This is like you often repeat these three words. It's like a mantra in my mind, and this gives me I kind of feel I'm on the right way.
Great.
Because I had this tendency a little bit that I can do everything with just sitting, or I have to do everything with sitting, but movement. Sometimes I'm a little bit reluctant also with movement, because when I move, I feel also this challenging feeling so much.
Yeah. Right.
But with movement, I can also make a meditation just to move and go with it, and just watch it, and it changes with time. Then
Every time you bring your attention back to the timelessness of the now as good as you can, you are meditating. Whether you are sitting or walking, whether you are dancing, whether you are alone or with people, whenever you bring your attention back home, that is the meditation. And if you like to sit, by all means, sit, but don't torture yourself.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I wish you well. Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om. Is there anybody else who would like to come in? You're welcome.
Hello, Werner.
Hello, Dial.
In Buddhism, there's three basic truths which they call universal. One of these anicca, impermanence of everything. Another is anatta, there is no personality, no me, no I. And third one, dukkha, this suffering of how to say, not possible to get satisfaction through worldly objects. I get approximately understand like this.
Yes.
So, and the last point is not really clear to me, but can you speak about all three in your experience? Because in Advaita they're not speaking much about these things. Did you experience these things one after another, or whatever you can talk about it?
But what's the first? The first one?
First was anicca. Anicca means impermanence.
Yeah, anitya. Yeah, right, in Sanskrit. Anitya. Impermanence. And no person and suffering. These are not three steps. It's not that you first somehow have to get clear about number one, and then about number two, and then number three. It's just when teachings are done, then it's like structured like this. But remembering any of the three helps you to remember the others. If you are aware, this, what is here, whatever is manifest, is continuously in movement. It's continuously changing. It's temporary. Every experience. It's much easier to deal with them. If we don't like anything and we remember, hey, it's just temporary, then we can easier accept, oh, for the time being, it is as it is, instead of resisting and think it shouldn't be like this, it shouldn't be like this. You just accept, okay, it is as it is, observe it, and then it comes, it's there, and it goes, and it's not a problem. The problem is when we resist, when we don't want, it shouldn't be the way it is, but fighting against facts is always misery. Not accepting facts is always misery. So remembering the anicca helps you to deal with the situation. It helps also with the nice situation. If you remember, okay, you are in a place and you like it very much, but then when it goes and we want to hold on to it, then it creates again pain. But if you remember, okay, it's a nice, wonderful, beautiful, but it changes all the time, then I can also accept when the nice moment is gone, it's gone, and let it go without resisting to the fact that it changes again, that it goes. Then it doesn't create suffering. Now, the second one is always a dispute between the Buddhists and the Advaitins. That the Advaitins talk about the self, and the Buddhists say there is no self. But actually, they don't mean the same thing with the word self. The anatma, oh, no,
Anatta.
in
Yeah,
that's in Bali.
Pali language, anatta. Yeah,
Yes,
Pali. Yeah.
in Sanskrit is the anatma. When of the Buddhists refers to the personality, that this personality is not something real. It's a construction. There is that sense of I in it. But all the stuff that is built on top of it is something that we have learned and that we are doing again and again. And by thinking about the story, thinking about ourselves as a person all the time, we make it in a hard, concrete reality. But if we don't do that, then that personality that is separate from the whole rest of existence is simply not there. There is still. And that is the dispute factor between the Buddhists and the Advaitins, that the Buddhists say, but you are talking about the self and we want to get rid of the self. And the Atma of the Vedantin is not that same Atma that the Buddhist talks about. So when the Vedanti talks about the Atma, they call it the self. But they call the self that which is prior to the personality, that which is exactly not separate. There is no separate entity. There is an entity, but it's not separate. The entity is not the problem. The problem is when we start to create that wall. So remembering that this is not real helps you also to deal with the situations that you don't create suffering. Remembering when there is a tense situation and out of habit, I'm totally identified with my personality. I'm identified with my attitude. I'm identified with what I think is right and what the others think is wrong. I'm identified with all those, and then totally I'm in tension. And maybe I start to fight and try to prove and want to be right. But if I remember, hey, all this is a play. It doesn't matter. There's no separation between the other, between myself. That separate, limited personality is momentary, a momentary appearance. Then what does it matter? Most of the time, it's not worth the trouble to enter into fights. Most of the time, it's not worth the trouble to defend one's beliefs, one's attitude, one's thought, what should be and should not be right in this situation, but accept, okay, not everybody sees it the same way. We still somehow can move along harmoniously. If we remember that anatma in this way, not as a philosophical proposition with which we can again start to fight with others who talk about the Atma. But if we remember that Anatma has this personality is not what I am. It's a role that I'm playing. It has only substance as much substance as I give it. And then when the identification diminishes, it's much easier to move from moment to moment without creating suffering, without estranging our attention from our real nature, which you can call whatever. You can call it the Buddha nature, you can call it Shunyata, or you can call it the self or Purna, the fullness. Doesn't matter. These are all words that point at something we are anyhow not able to grasp with the intellect. So let's not fight about philosophical proposition, but make use of the teaching in such a way that it helps us from moment to moment to be more in harmony, more relaxed, more in the flow of existence instead of in our mind and defending useless things. And now, suffering, dukkha. Your true nature is not suffering. But as long as we are separating our attention from that, as long as we are not aware of the first two aspects you have mentioned, that everything is changing and then resist, as long as we are not aware that this separate feeling of separation is an illusion, then invariably our actions, they are going to create suffering all the time. Deep down, everybody knows this is not natural. Deep down, everybody wants to be happy. Why? Because it's natural to be happy. So deep down, everybody is always thinking something is wrong, and then we can run and try to fill this apparent void with all kinds of things. And for moments, we may have the feeling, oh yeah, it makes me happy, but within short time, it's gone again. And it's a disappointment again and again. So that teaching that you cannot find happiness in external situations is perfectly all right. That doesn't mean that you should not, you cannot install your life in such a way that you like the circumstances, if it's possible, but don't make your well-being dependent on it. Be aware that your real happiness comes out of yourself. You are in your true nature joyous all the time. It's all the time there. It's never absent. We are simply not aware of it. We have forgotten and can create those barriers that we are not aware of it. So being aware of that the external cannot bring you happiness but makes you suffer doesn't mean that the external manifestation is bad. It simply means if we deal with it in the wrong way, invariably we are creating suffering. As long as we are looking for the source of fulfillment and being happy to being complete, as long as we are looking outside, as long as we are think one person has to give us, one house has to give us, one car, one situation, one community, something has to give us that completeness and that happiness, we are going to be disappointed again and again, because your happiness, what we are looking for, comes out of ourselves. It's already there. We simply have to recognize it's there. And so the three are not first you do one and then you do the other and then you become aware of the third. You just by practicing the first two aspects, you become more and more aware of the third one. Like the Buddha in his four basics truths, he said, okay, life is suffering. And then the second one, because of Trishna, because of greed. But then the third is it need not be like this. We can do something about it. It's simply an observation that there is suffering all the time because people deal with it in the wrong way, and then Buddha's answer to it is his eightfold path of doing right this, doing right that, and the meaning learning to deal with the external situation, with the external world, that it is not suffering.
Yes, thank you, Werner. Thank you. And one more question about
Yes.
this stuff. I
About?
wonder about these three basic truths.
Yeah.
That in Buddhism I never see that approach like Ramana Maharshi. They never try to directly see there's no I. There's give a lot of preparation, or for example, Goenka said, first you have to experience anicca, direct experience of anicca inside of your body, and when you will see that your body is not solid, only then you can realize anatta. So what do you think about two different approaches of Ramana Maharshi and Buddhism?
Basically, they're doing the same, because even if somebody is approaching on the path of self-inquiry, then okay, the aim is going directly at the root, but then all the mental disturbance comes, and one has to deal with it exactly like the Buddhist also deals with it. Now, Buddhism, you cannot say actually Buddhism is like this and like that. There are all these different schools in Buddhism that are not the same, that have similar things, but then in many ways often contradict themselves. These established traditions, they have usually this kind of approach of step by step by step. And if you feel attracted to that, and you feel that feels right to you, then you can exactly do that. But then it need not necessarily be like this. You can very much approach in a more holistic way, that you just go for the whole all the time. Still, the one who's doing that has to deal with all that stuff that stands in the way, exactly like the Buddhist who tries to do so, going step by step by step. Then if you don't follow such a step by step approach, then you in a way you are creating your own steps on the way, because there is something that comes and creates trouble, and then there is another thing that creates trouble, and you have to learn to deal with it in such a way that it's not more creating suffering, that it's not more an obstacle to simply being. The external practices are a little different. The philosophies have a bit different concepts, but finally, what the sadhak has to do with oneself, it's always the same story. Whether you are going with steps or not with steps, whether you are having this kind of teaching or that kind of teaching, if you sincerely bring the attention to the present, whether then you go first that you feel exactly with the body as you have described or not, still the barriers come, the tensions come, the psyche comes and creates trouble, and we have to learn to deal with that and let it go. That actually is the main job.
Yeah, thank you, Werner. I understand very clearly. Thank you. Hari Om.
You're welcome. Hari Om. Hari Om. Hari Om. Is there anybody else who would like to say something? You're welcome to come in. But I just said to Dial, this is the truth, no matter what our beliefs are, no matter what tradition we like and follow. In the same tradition, no matter which aspect we are picking up and preferring. In the Hindu tradition, there are the three main approaches: the jnana, the bhakti, and the yoga. But no matter how you are approaching, finally, what the job we have to do comes always the same. The little tricks, the little techniques we may use may differ, but basically somehow the path is not really a path anywhere. The path is to come back home, to become aware we are already there. It's not that there is a goal that is to be reached after a long, arduous journey. What we are looking for is here, is now. And somehow all the practices are pointing at that. And then, if one feels attracted to a certain technique, one can very well practice that technique, and through that technique become more self-aware in the present. That is the essence of all the practices. That is the essence of all the traditions and approaches, that it's a help, a crutch for the mind to make it easier to connect with that source. And in course of the process, if a sadhak is sincere and really goes deeper, invariably there come obstacles. And when there are obstacles, then if we have a tradition, if we have a technique, then we know how to deal with them, how to pick them up, how to deal with them, to let them go. If we don't have a particular tradition, then still, when it comes, we have to learn not to get swept away with it. We have to learn to become aware, okay, I'm here now prior to all that. And then learn in one way or another to redirect the attention enough from that obstacle, from that which is happening, that we can learn to let it go, that we can learn to relax it. And whether we are doing it with a religion or without a particular religion, whether we are doing it more as a jnani or a yogi or a bhakta, or a mixture of them, whether we are creating our own devices on the way, finally the job is always the same. The bhakta may give over the problems to God. Okay, I see I'm creating these problems. God help me. That giving it over to God is nothing else of learning to let it go. The jnani may analyze, observe, and say, I'm not this, I'm not that. What am I? And in order to get rid of it, he has to let go. The yogi may see that obstacle, may see what kind of energetic problem it creates. Learn through conscious breathing, through being aware of the body sensations, through yoga exercises, to undo these energetic knots that they are creating and learn to relax it and let them go. The job one has to do in one way or another is always to become aware what stands in the way of being in our natural self. and then learn to let it go. And for that we can use any help. Whatever helps is good. The job, finally, we don't get around. Even if we have a teacher, even if we have the comfort of a Sangha, even if we have the comfort of belonging to a tradition, a proven path that has been treaded since a long time and trodden and since a long time, and many people have found liberation through it, even if we have all those comforts. Finally, in spite of the external support, we have to have an honest, good look at ourselves and see what is estranging us from being in our own natural divinity, and learn to let it go. And all the practices help? They should. Of course, one can get a bit caught up in techniques and then become an adept, an experienced practitioner of a technique and be able to do a lot of things with it. But that's not really the point of it. The point is that the technique makes it a bit easier, gives the mind a crutch, makes it a bit easier to become self-aware. It is not so easy when we see the mind rolling, going round and round, when we see all the tensions, to simply abstractly just drop it. So all the different practices help us to become more self-aware. They create a certain energetic strength, they create an energetic support, and they give us something to hold on to let go of something that is more of a weight. And if we hold on to a technique, to a practice, to something tangible for the mind, then the other stuff is easier going, and eventually we need not even hold on to that. But that is after that easy to let go. You are that here now. It's what the Upanishad says, Tattvam Asi. It's not, we have to become that. It's not by practice, we have to become that. It is here. It's the only fact. All the other facts, they are momentarily there. There is the fact of the situation, the fact of the experience, the fact of if you do, according to the tradition, certain practices that gradually you can get rid of a lot of stuff. These are temporary facts, but the one fact is there, that which makes the experience possible. That which you feel. When you bring the attention here and become aware, I'm alive. I'm conscious. I'm consciously alive. I'm consciously conscious. That is there, immovable. We just have to find our way back to that. Actually, we are never separate from it, but we have learned to feel separate. Our attention feels separate, and the job is to come back home, here now, to that which we are. All right, my friends, I'm asking you again. Does anybody want to say something? You're welcome to come in.
Hello, Werner.
Hello, Lutz.
Yeah, I want to ask something about the technique of focusing on an enlightened person and kind of tuning into that, what they represent with the help of focusing on the picture. I want to also say a short personal story about that.
Yeah.
That's I when I look at the picture, usually I judge the person by the outer experience somehow. Is she beautiful, or is he nice looking or not, or something like this? Something like this comes spontaneously up, or I from my memory some people who look different and with whom I made good or bad experiences. Something like this comes up. But this is completely not recognizing the true nature of these people. But I have met other people who look at a picture of a person, and then they know lots of things about this person, about the personality and the likes and dislikes and what this person is doing. And I was very impressed by that. When I was a young man, I met one clairvoyant who could do this. And of course, now when I was with Amma, she always liked to look at pictures, and then she would kind of get some intuitive knowledge about these people. And for me, this was always amazing because they just had this picture. They don't know their name. They don't know nothing. They had just this picture and spontaneously could say what they're doing. So I was very intrigued, and I thought, oh, I want to kind of learn this, or how they are doing it and so on. But I never really got really behind the secret. But later in my spiritual path, I came across one teacher, and he recommended to look at his picture and look at his picture with a kind of innocence and open-heartedness and with a kind of empty mind. And if one does that properly, then you would feel his greater nature, not his kind of personality, what he likes or dislikes or something, but you kind of use the image of him as a tuning in point to some greater nature he is living in or he's connected to.
Yeah.
So now I'm doing this since quite a long time, and it works to some extent. But I was wondering first, has this type of technique played any role in your personal way, or was this just some kind of marginal thing, some kind of, yeah, you put up the picture of Amma, and you feel her presence, and that was it. But basically you were doing your technique, you were not focusing on her picture or trying to tune in to the expansive beingness she is with the help of the picture. So that's just a personal question to you.
Yes, no, it wasn't my practice to do so. But of course I couldn't completely avoid that aspect, simply being so much in that situation, in that relationship. Then that even if I didn't focus on any particular picture, in a way, that picture was still always there, representing something that I want to find in myself. But it was not that I basically did that as a practice. Like many people in Amma's ashram, they had been doing what they call Rupa Dhyanam, that they really have a picture, either Amma's picture or a deity, and look at it and then try to visualize it very exactly, and in that way tune into that greater consciousness. That's not the kind of exercises I have been doing.
I see. Okay.
But you wanted to ask me whether this is valid or not, or actually.
Well, I think it's valid because it works for me to some extent, but nah, yeah, but how I want to frame it. I actually the still the amazement or the still what still my question about this, how this works.
Oh, how this works, right?
I mean,
And actually, you have given you the answer in what you have told before. You said, and this obviously was the instruction of the teacher, if you can look at that picture with innocence and openness, then it will start to work. And that's exactly what is required. Then if you look at the picture of a deity, it may be a bit easier because you are less tempted to start to criticize their character and what they are doing in the world. And if you look at the picture of somebody who is manifest, there are always things that happen in their life that you cannot necessarily approve so easily. And then instead of having that innocence and looking at that picture, then you remember, and why is he doing this and why is she doing that, and then it doesn't function well. Then that obstructs, because first you said looking at the picture of an enlightened person. There is no such thing like an enlightened person. There has never been any enlightened person.
yeah, okay. Person is maybe
Yeah.
the wrong.
Right, but that's actually significant, because after that, when you look at the picture of a being, how they have manifested, then we have the tendency to project also that personality into it. And so in order to make that practice efficient, then one has to let go of that part and really looking at that picture with the intention, okay, this is a way of focusing on that which is not personal, which is primordial, which is that which is making my own life possible. But in focusing on that through concentrating, focusing on an image can be very helpful, no doubt.
But for me is still a mystery. I mean, there's one thing about focusing.
Yeah.
That I can also focus on a point.
Yes.
And make my mind very still and just focus on this point and do nothing.
Yes.
But and also something will happen.
Right.
But if I focus on a beloved person or a beloved being or a kind of holy statue or kind of something like that, then there's more emotion involved than just focusing on the dot.
Right. Exactly.
So, but still, I do not really understand why this focusing on an image of an advanced being somehow makes me also a little bit tuning into their way of being. I mean, this is kind of, it's just an image.
Right. It's just
But
an image, but that has been associated with a being that has brought, manifested a certain vibe, a certain consciousness in this world, on this level. Like so many people are still looking at the picture of Ramana Maharshi in that way. And the fact that Ramana Maharshi has been living here in this world and just sitting and sitting and sitting and harnessing in doing so a tremendous energy on this level that gives the people who open up to that being that has appeared as Ramana Maharshi an advantage by opening the heart to that. Then that power, that powerful consciousness that has manifested on this level gives something more than when you focus simply on a point, that you can tune in and benefit from the job, from the work they have been doing.
But somehow, how do I know? I mean, when I do this practice with somebody like Ramana Maharshi, I have never met Ramana Maharshi in person. So, but still somehow something in me kind of benefits on that, what he represents. But how do I know about this? Or what in me kind of knows what Ramana Maharshi has done?
That which is the same as Ramana Maharshi knows in you. But then,
I mean, that's really very awe-inspiring, or kind of wow.
your essence is no different from the essence of Ramana Maharshi. Simply there it has been manifest in such a beautiful, brilliant way. And in our personal stories, we manifesting, and then we are manifesting a lot of obstacles and contradictory stuff. But essentially, you are not in any way different than Ramana Maharshi. So your essence recognizes that beautiful expression of itself in a manifestation like Ramana Maharshi. And then for the sadhak who is caught up in the mind, and then if there the devotional aspect comes in, then that helps to open the heart. You cannot develop so easily devotion to a point you are focusing on. But if a devotee reads about Dhamma stories, even without meeting her, if a devotee reads about any teacher, even without meeting them, and somehow they feel inspired by their story, and because of that they open their heart, then the emotional aspect is also helping. It's good then not to get stuck on the emotional level, but then the emotion brings an additional energy into it. And if the devotion is there, then the heart is opening and you becoming more aware what they really represent. Then that can be very helpful, that the devotional attitude towards a teacher, and for many people it may be helpful looking at the picture to have that attitude, to develop that attitude, knowing that devotion to your teacher is basically the devotion you have for your own self, for your own essence. Essentially, you are not different than Amma or Ramana Maharshi or any other teacher.
Yeah, thank you.
Shall we leave it at that? Okay.
Yes.
Hari Om. Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Is there anybody else who would like to say something? Okay, then let's, Andreas, there he is, Andreas.
Hello.
Hello.
How much should you follow your just natural tendencies? I mean, I'm rather an analytical person, but right now it feels more that I'm getting more in tune with my body, and I realized, for example, there's my left side is always very kind of stuck, and there are problems in it. So I try to focus a little bit on it, to relax it, and to open it up. And yeah, what do you think about that?
You said how much of our natural tendencies, I think how much should we let there and how much we should remove, and how much should we develop new tendencies? Is that somehow the question?
Sorry, that was very unclear.
Yeah.
It's more like right now I feel more like I just let the spiritual process unravel itself by itself and just follow my intuition. But or should I more like try to, being such an analytical person, try to develop more devotion, or try to open my heart more, or should I just go more with my natural flow?
Yes, go with your natural flow, and not with shoot this, shoot that. Simply, when we go with our natural flow, let's be alert, not to sort of go dreamy about it, and sort of it can feel very pleasant, and then we get a bit stuck there and get a bit dreamy instead of being alert. So by all means, go with your natural flow, and not always sabotaging yourself. Maybe I should, maybe I should do it different. Go full-heartedly, confidently, with your natural flow. Simply remain alert. Don't go dreamy about it. And then you're fine.
And is it helpful to focus on points where you feel like the energy is somehow stuck? I mean, in these points, it manifests as some kind of physical problem, like always my left sinuses who gets infected, or it's my like there's always some kind of stiffness in the, like below the left shoulder, and yeah, or in the heart region here. So is it helpful to focus there and try to let this open up?
Right, but don't like it, to do it with much willpower. But when you focus there, then be aware of the whole rest of your manifestation, of the whole rest of the body. You give it attention, but at the same time, you relax. You relax the whole rest of your body. Don't go into it and then try to relax that tension that is there. Be aware of it and relax whatever you can relax, and then this is following into the relaxation. And that can be a very healing experience.
Yeah, I think the relaxing part is very important for me, because I'm you get caught up in my mind and try to do it too much with too much willpower.
Right. The body is amazing, and a body is amazing how it can heal itself if we let it. And if we, with will and new tension, go into attention and try in that way to remove that tension, it's very difficult. But if you focus at the same time, be aware of your whole manifestation as a whole unit, and relax the whole thing as good as you can, then that helps this aspect this part you're focusing on to relax also better, and it's like the whole body is participating in healing that thing. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Hari Om. Hari Om. Is there anybody who has a quick question? Seems not to be the case. So let us round up today's satsang like this. You are that. In the beginning, I talked about self-limiting beliefs, but you are that. We just have learned not to be aware of it. We have forgotten what we are. We have learned to create all those mental tensions, all those constructions, and we reinforce them. But all we have to do to see that we are doing and learn to let it go. And then the mind is not the problem. The capacity to think is not the problem. The body is not the problem. It becomes an expression of the self, that your inner beauty can flow on this level and express itself beautifully, constructively, creatively. I wish you all well. Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om.